the thing that I'm going to tell you guys is that every single one of you is fully capable of getting to that point if you stay consistent with doing some core tasks and correct behaviors. Okay, now let me go back in time a while ago. Back about, this might have been, I think probably close to 10 years ago. I had joined a supplement company, and I was, I learned some networking and stuff like that. Obviously, I was getting better at it, and I knew that it just came down to being a numbers game, no matter what. And this was pre really where we weren't doing ATM strategies and didn't have a ton of tools and stuff like that. And it was the same strategy I basically used when I made seven figures in a company 15 years ago. Okay, I was in a company called Zango, which was a purple juice, right? It was a purple juice that basically made your life better in a nutshell. Okay, when you drank it, you were awesome. And what I did in that company, and I'm going to actually go back to that company. What I learned how to do was remember I said the 5 steps that I did: prospect, contact, present, follow up, and repeat. When I jumped into, what I did was I would prospect people by figuring out who I wanted to talk to. I contacted them, but back then I used to just make a phone call. Okay, that was when people still answered their phones, right? And I would call people, and all I did, this is not an exaggeration, all I did was I called and asked permission to send them an email. And everybody said yes. Nobody ever said no. I said, hey, Lisa, this is Mike Healy. I don't know if you remember me or not, and it usually would or wouldn't, and I say, hey, I just wanted to call and ask you permission to send you an email. I'm pretty excited about something. A new company launched, and I just want to send you something with a link in it. Is that cool? And everybody said yes. So I prospect, contact, and I presented. The presentation basically came down to, they clicked on the link and they went to my website. I mean, we didn't even have any, it wasn't even elaborate. There was no real sizzle video or anything like that. And then if they wanted more information, I basically gave them the prospect, contact, present, follow up. Okay, I presented that to them, the website. They saw a little video and some information on there. And I followed up with them within usually 48 hours by asking them some information. And then I just repeated the process just multiple times. So what I did is I took a little notepad and I would write down little hash marks on my piece of paper. And I just basically made it a consistent point to talk to probably 5 to 10 people a day that gave me permission. When I dialed the phone, if they didn't answer, that didn't count. I dialed the phone. If they didn't answer, that didn't count. I dialed the phone, they answered, and I got permission to give them an email, and it counted. I would put a hash down. And the reason I did that was this was my daily method of operation. It allowed me, one, to track what I was doing, and two, it gave me a consistent track to run on that I knew if I stayed on that course that I would I would get somebody in the business. Okay. And I know a lot of times that you have to do this by faith in most cases right out of the gates. But the thing is that when I did that, I stayed consistent. I did that literally for a couple years, where I just would do that. Now, and I tried to be consistent, 5 days a week, where I'd send out maybe 5 texts, 5 to 10, depending on what I did. But I tried to stay consistent with that. And I ended up, in a 4-year period, I ended up recruiting over 300 personals. I built an organization that had done, millions of dollars in volume of the sales of that product over that 4-year period of time. And I earned, I think it was $1.5 million that I put in my pocket. Okay. And what it wasn't that, because if you think about it, if you just stay the course of consistency, I'm telling you with everything in me, if you believe this and know that it's true, because it's the truth, it'll change your course. It'll change the course of your business, because these things work. Okay. So now let me go from there now. So then I get into another company, and guess what happened? I was in another company after Zango for just about maybe 6 months or so. And that happened right at in 2008, when the economy just went in the tank. Remember when everything crashed, the real estate market destroyed itself and so on. but I was the number one recruiter in that thing. And take a wild guess what I did. I made a phone call. I asked permission to send somebody an email. I got them to look at the presentation. I followed up with them and I repeated the process. Fast forward to the next company. Okay. And in that company, in that company, I had the largest income earning month I'd ever had in the history of my career. Actually, I'd earned in 1 month, I earned over $92,000 in 1 month. And all I was doing was this. I was always just being the messenger, not the message. And I was just learning from the process, right? I was just following the process. The next company that I was in came around. I thought it was going to be great. Take a wild guess what I did. The exact same thing. Take a wild guess who was the number one recruiter in that company. Okay. There's a pattern here, and I wasn't pulling people over a lot of times from the team, people that were in there. Yeah, I'd contact them, but some of them would just get burned out. They wouldn't come join the new company. But I was always trying to figure out where I could talk to new people. You pull up your phone. More than likely, most people have more than 1,000 people on their phone right now, and I guarantee you, 99% of you that ever hear my voice or watch these trainings never contact 1% of them. Okay. A training that helped me, and I'm going to get to the other, I haven't even got the other company. One thing that I heard a trainer say years and years ago, this was probably close to 20 years ago, I heard this from a training. They were talking about, just doing it over and over and over, was the example of oysters, right? You shuck oysters, and if I gave you a bucket of 100 oysters, and if all you did was open an oyster and you opened it up and there wasn't a pearl in it, you would get rid of it, right? Most times people they'll open one oyster, which is making one contact, and then for some reason they think that person is going to develop into an oyster, or a pearl, right? Or it's going to have a pearl in it. If it doesn't, you move along. See, the thing that's, I think, has made me so successful is I've learned to say less to more people much quicker than the average person. Okay. I don't get emotionally tied to the outcome, but I get passionate about the behavior and the consistency of it. And by doing that, it's enabled me to contact people. So now let me go back to the company that originally started this train of thought. So there's another company. It was a supplement company I got into, and I joined it. And after probably being in it about 6 months or so, I'm building a team. It's going good. All of a sudden, they come up with a $50,000 recruiting bonus contest, right? And there were already people in the company that were big money earners and were leading all the leaderboards and all the things that they were doing. Okay. And I looked at it and I was just like, okay. And it was a 5-month contest. And at the end of the month, at the end of the last day of the month, they would always post the leaders, who was the top spot, second, third, and they'd have like the top 20. And what was crazy is this, is I never actually won any of the single month recruiter contest. But my consistency over that 5-month period actually made me the number one recruiter in the company. And in addition to getting all the money you would normally make through the comp plan, I earned a $50,000 bonus. I got one of the big, Stacy and I got one of the big, Price is Right checks that said $50,000 on it. I got that picture on my website and everything. But it was that. So if you think about it, the pattern here is this, is I've said less to more people faster. I've said less to more people faster. But the important thing is this, is the behavior that has to be done, or that has to be identified, is what is the one behavior that will get you those results. And to me, it was just getting exposures. Okay. It was just getting exposures. Now, in this company, right, in iBuumerang, there's 2 ways that I have taught that if you just follow the pattern of this, I'm telling you, with everything in me, if you follow it and you teach it, it's going to make you plenty of money. Okay. The one strategy right out of the gate, and they're both the same, they're just delivered differently. Okay. They're both the same, but they're delivered differently. The first strategy, which is usually the easiest for everybody, is sending somebody a text. Okay, because it goes back to the same thing I used to say, where I would call people. Well, now people they react to texts faster and better than phone calls. So I just figured out let's go with what the market wants, right? And I text people the sizzle call. Okay, and here's basically I'm actually going to share my screen with you real quick. I'm going to read this to you, or I'm not going to share my screen. I'm going to share my PowerPoint with you. Okay, or my screen. Okay, so here's my screen. Okay, let's pull that up. And I'm going to shrink my face real quick. Okay, a text that I would normally send would read something like this. Hey, Joe, and what's nice about today's technology, today's day and age technology, you don't have to type that out with your thumbs. You can actually record it. It's called talk to text, right? So I would talk in there and I would say, hey, Joe, not sure if you'd be interested or not, but there's a new technology company just launched and they're looking to pay people some pretty big money to promote it. And I thought of you. Listen to this short recorded message to see if it interests you at all. And if it does, let me know and I'll get you more details. Thanks. Here's the number to listen. Talk to you later, Mike. Okay. And by doing that, all I want is an exposure of the message, because recruiting is a process. It's not an event. It's a process, not an event. So by saying that, all I'm doing is I'm edifying, and my only task, the only thing I want to happen is for someone to hear that recorded message. Okay. So from a text standpoint, the thing that I wanted done is I sent people to read that, right? And the thing that I like the most about sending that text with that recorded message is because in most cases it will automatically highlight on their phone, and all they do is it's automatically will highlight. They click on it, and regardless of where they're at, they can start listening to that. And by listening to that, I've now exposed them to the first step of the thing. And in a lot of cases, you'll get people to respond to that. And then they will want, because that call, that recorded message, I strategically typed it out through marketing psychology and said certain buzzwords that most people don't catch that I've studied to get somebody to as a trigger point to get them to listen to it, or to listen to the entire thing. A lot of you guys have heard me say this multiple times. 80% at least of the people that listen to that message listen to the entire thing, and it's 8 minutes long. But I get the stats every single day. I see how many people dialed it and how many people listen to the entire thing. And that's the thing that most impresses me, is the majority of people listen to the entire thing. And I'm telling you, whoever exposes people to that number the most, without prejudging the outcome, but getting fired up about your process and your behavior, you'll make the most money. Because the next thing it just leads you directly into, right after that, is the I decide. Okay, I still do give the I decide out. I let people get the I decide. And then the third step of that process is just a regular normal iBuumerang presentation. Okay. Now, so that's the same thing that I'm going to show you again, but from that standpoint, we're going to look at it now. That was the text, but here's what we do with the ATM process. The ATM, it's almost the identical message that I would say when tagging someone or sending them into the ATM. But here's what I want to tell you. I always do both. If I add somebody to the ATM group, I still, if I remember to do it, which I usually do, I still will send that person a text to get them to listen to the recorded message. Because I've noticed that if I can send out multiple exposure points for the initial thing that's the same message, one of them is going to trip their trigger. Okay, one of them is going to get to them. That's the key. Okay. Hey, Joe, not sure if you'd be interested or not. There's a new technology company that just launched and they're looking to pay people some pretty big money to promote it. and I thought of you. Exact same thing as I said on the text. Here's where it changed. I invited you to a private Facebook group and tagged you in a short video to educate you on the concept. You can leave the group at any time, but I suggest you look around a little bit, and I think you're going to love what you see. I'll talk to you later, or message me back if you have any questions. Okay. Now, here's the thing: is I don't, and what I would tell you is this. Okay. Hopefully, you guys can see me. Is on Facebook. So think about how simple this is, as you being able to build the business, but just as important, your person is asking themselves when you're recruiting, your person you're talking to is always asking themselves a question. Can I do, so it's like subconsciously, can I do what they're doing? Can I do what they're doing? So this process, excuse me, makes it doable that anybody can do what I did, right? So what I typically do is I go to, on my phone, I would go into the groups, right? I go to, not boom time. I go into the 5-star group, right? So you can see the 5-star group. And right here, there's a little blue button on my phone that says invite. I click the invite button, okay? And I'm going to send this person here. There's a person at the very top of that list that I don't think I've contacted yet about the business, okay? It was a suggestion by them. And I am going to just do this. I'm going to push invite. Okay. So I just clicked to invite Nikki into the group. Okay. Now I got to let her know that I did this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my messenger, which is that app right there, the little blue one that says messenger. Okay. Check this out. And I'm going to go to the top here and I'm going to search something real quick. I'm going to search out Nikki. Okay. I got her on here. And so, and I can tell I haven't contacted her about anything for probably over a year. Okay. So I click on these 4 little dots, just like we used to do with the chat bot. I click on 4 dots and there's the voice thing right there. I click on the voice. Okay. And I'm going to pull up the script real quick. Okay. Hey, Nikki, Mike Healy. Hey, hope everything's doing all right. Hopefully you've got some great things going on and holidays are over. But hey, listen, I don't know if you've been watching anything that I've been doing, but there's a new technology company that just launched and they're paying some people some pretty big money to kind of promote the thing. And I invited you into a private Facebook group that will kind of educate you on it. Just go ahead and look around on there. I'm also going to tag you in a video so that you can watch kind of the first initial thing on it. And then if you have any questions, let me know. And if you want out of the group at any time, it's not a big deal. I totally understand. But I obviously was thinking of you because I know you're very sharp and, you could probably kill this thing and make quite a bit of money at it. So I'll talk to you in a bit. Thanks. Okay. Not rocket science. And then what happened is it delivered the audio. The reason I like to leave audio messages instead of actually just typing things out a lot of times. Now I like to type out the text for the phone number, okay, in the text, right? Because I want them to be able to click on it and hear it immediately. So now I've invited her. I actually just left her an audio message, but there's something extremely important that I still have to do. I probably should have done that first. Is this, I got to go back to the 5-star group and I typically just click on announcements so I can get straight to it. I click on announcements and the first one that's tagged to the top is the sizzle call. Now the sizzle call is exactly the recorded message. That's the text message I talked to you about, except it's the exact same thing. And then all I do is I click on comments. Okay. All I do is click on comments and say, hey, Nikki. Now, here's the thing. If you type into Facebook, what's going to happen is a lot of times their name won't come up automatically. If you actually click on and find the @ button, so if you click the @ symbol, and then I type in Nikki and start to continue to type, I'll find her. It pulls up anybody with the name Nikki. Then it automatically drops her in there. And then I'm a lot of times I don't like to type, so I'll just audio it. Here's the first video I mentioned in the message I left you. Thanks again. Look around when you get a chance. And it typed it out, right? It typed out the message. And then I usually put an emoji of like a smiley face or something like that. And I did it. And there it is. And it populated there. And the cool part about that is it now tagged her in that. Okay. So if you think about this, I just showed you in less than 5 minutes how to easily, and obviously I was explaining it, so I could have done this a lot faster if I wasn't talking to you. But I just explained to something to you that you could do that. Now the cool part is what you're doing is you are doing the vital behavior to get the result, the end result that you actually wanted, which is more enrollments, right? Let me make sure I got some on my notes here. Okay. Now I wanted to go back to that story. Remember this? So I told you about the $50,000 bonus that I got, right? But here's what I did then, and this was pre-Facebook. Okay, this was Facebook hadn't been invented actually yet. I don't think. I mean, it might have been being invented in Zuckerberg's backyard or whatever, wherever he was at garage. I think everybody invents stuff in their garage. But I used to go to when my boys were in Little League Pee Wee football. I would go to it was during the fall when they had this contest, and I would go to their football practices, and I had a little folding lawn chair, and I would sit under the trees right there, and the football field would be there, and there's some trees and some shade because it's kind of warm out there, and all I did for 2 hours while they practiced, because that was my window, was I had pieces of paper of phone numbers, old business cards that I'd found, all this stuff. And all I did was I sat there with my phone and I would dial it and the phone would ring. And if they answered, I'd say, "Hey, Lisa." "Oh, hey, Lisa, Mike Healy. How are you?" "Good, good, good." "Hey, listen, I'm not going to take up any of your time, but do you care if I send you an email about something?" "No?" "Awesome. Okay, great. I'll get that to you. Is your email still lisasmith@gmail.com?" "Yep." "Okay, great. Hey, I think you're gonna like what you see. I'll put a link in there. Check it out when you're done." And I would hang up. I'd be on and off the phone in that period of time. But during that window of those 2 hour spans, that consistency is what created that $50,000 bonus. I kid you not. That is what I did. With the ATM strategy, what I like the best about the ATM strategy is everybody knows that the fortune's in the follow-up, is when you tag somebody in there and you get them into that group. Anytime we post, in most cases, they'll get a notification of it. If they're in the group and you find another video in there that you like or you thought about, you can tag them in that one. You can comment there, say, "Hey, Lisa, I don't know if you saw this interview with Mike and Dr. Lorette, but it was awesome." Or, "Hey, I didn't know if you saw this savings because you brought that question up." And everything that everything that you do creates follow-up in that entire ecosystem of the ATM group. Okay. And it makes it very simple for people to do by doing that. Okay. So I wanted to do this real quick. Are you guys getting something out of this? I know I can't see anybody. You're welcome to send me a chat message with a thumbs up or something. Is it worth it? And can I do it? Okay. So what I did, so if you think about what I've done here in iBuumerang, is I really have done basically the same thing. I just use the ATM system, or I just send text. Like when I joined iBuumerang. Okay. This is not a joke. This is truth. I'd get up in the morning like I normally do. I have my coffee, I read, and then I would think about, I'm going to go after this. I'm going to go after this. And all I would do is I made that same text. And typically what I would do is I would copy and paste it with the phone number after I made the sizzle call. Okay. And I would go sit on my patio. And I would go sit down on my patio and drink coffee when it was, it was warm. It was starting to get warm, like in the spring and stuff like that. And I'd sit out there and I would just text people on my phone. So for maybe 30 minutes while I was laying out, I'd sit there and I'd make a goal of just a personal goal of maybe making sure I got 5 people that I was going to send text to, or whatever, or 20 people, whatever it was. Because text, they don't really ever block. With the ATM system, just as a quick warning, you'll get thrown in Facebook jail if you put more than like 10 people in there. So you only want to do like 5, at the most in a short window of within maybe an hour or two. Okay, just to let you know, that's the easiest thing to do. But what I did was I sat there and I would send text after text after text after text after text. I never prejudged anybody. Okay, I never prejudged anybody, because if you prejudge somebody, you prejudge your success, because you never know where somebody's at with their life. You could think that this person said they would never do network marketing. Listen to me. Tommy Johnson was probably intimidated to contact me about iBuumerang, but he got out of his comfort zone and he sent a text. That is the truth. And then, because he wanted me to actually look at it and know what I was saying no to if I did say no, I continued to look. I continued to look. And eventually he got information from me, because when he was trying to recruit me, there was really no information besides a couple videos, right? And when he sent it to me and I actually took a good look, I was like, holy smokes, this thing's not what I had preconceived. And now that I look, because one of the coolest things I ever heard was from the guy that I really, really looked up to, was Paul Orbison. Paul Orbison was the first guy in the very first company I ever joined who was the #1 money earner. And I believe he may have been the very first person in the history of network marketing to earn over $1 million a month in commissions from just the comp plan. Okay. And Paul was phenomenal. He was just a down-to-earth, great guy. But he said something on a recording I've heard thousands of times, because I listened to it because it's so motivating. He said that he would stay after a person until he showed him the business. Once he had shown them the business, it was then their responsibility to respond. So just because somebody doesn't respond a lot of times to your first text, it doesn't mean that they're not interested. Sometimes people just see if you're going to send, like a lot of times people will send me stuff and then I'll never hear from them again. I'm like, yeah, it's probably fly by night. But somebody sends me the same thing maybe 3 or 4 times, just out of morbid curiosity, a lot of times I'll take a look at it and then I'll make my decision at that point. And people are just like, they're like that. People are just like that. They're like that all the time. That if you do that, you're going to find that more people will start to dive into it and listen to it. Okay. They'll really, really understand what they have their hands on, or what they might be missing out on. I mean, if you look at the stories of the people that have joined our company to date, in most cases, it took more than one exposure of something, and it was a process of them following up with them, and they eventually said, you know what, I can't deny what I'm looking at. Okay. Somebody's asking me a question here. This is a good question. Somebody just inboxed me. If I'm texting people on Facebook, do I ask permission first before I send the sizzle call recorded message as the first exposure, or come up with a very good copy, includes the message or link the message? Good question. Don't have a good answer. If I know the person, I don't have a problem just delivering the message. Okay. If I know the person, I just deliver the message. Like that girl, Nikki, that I just gave you the example, is I know her. We've been in business, but we've been in business before. And I just sent that to her, and I didn't think anything of it. Right. But the consistency is more important. I think that, if you could try both, where you ask permission to send somebody some information and see what you respond with. Okay. Because you have to remember that it's going to take some time. There's going to be some exposure time, but you start to fill your pipeline. It's all about the daily method operation. And I've got piles and piles of yellow pads, because this is how I've always tracked everything. That when I would send somebody a message, my follow-up thing was on, I didn't have spreadsheets or anything. It was just on yellow pads. I'd write down Lisa Smith, right? And then I would say SE, I put SE, which sent email. That was how I originally did it. And then I would just go through, and then I'd put a little line there letting me know that on January 1st, I sent, these 5 messages. On January 2nd, I did these. On maybe I skipped a day or two because it was a weekend or whatever. And then on January 7th, I did this many and these people. And then when I followed up with them, what was cool is I went back, and if somebody joined, whether it was a customer, they bought product, or usually joined, I would put in, and I put a big circle around it. And what was amazing to see was as I started to fill up these yellow pads with names, were all of the patterns. The pattern here was I'd have a name, a name, a name, in, a name, a name, a name, a name, in, a name, in, a name, a name, a name, a name, a name, a name, in. And it was just that, and I literally have stacks probably that big of yellow pads or little notepads over the years of doing this exact thing, of staying consistent to the core tasks, focusing on the right behavior. The outcome always happened. The outcome always happened because we have there's too many good stories in our company. We have too good of a message for people not to be smart enough to hear it. You're not dumb. You joined because you saw the correct things like the rest of us, okay? You're not on an island. You joined because you saw something and you understood the significance of it and why it made sense or makes sense. And I'm telling you with everything in me, this is the year. This year right here, right? We're talking 2020 will be the year that whoever puts in the most personals and builds that business and begins to build some depth on those personals will make more money than they can probably count. As not an exaggeration, because what this company, what they have as a foundation, the leadership behind it, the vision that they're where they want to go, and obviously the model of the services they're going to roll out. The money here is going to be, I believe, it's going to be insane. Okay, it's absolutely going to be crazy. Somebody else left me. When we tag in Facebook and then do the invite, do they have to accept the invitation from Facebook to continue in the group? Sometimes they have to accept the invitation. I'm pretty sure they do to continue in the group. But the cool part is that's why I kind of say, hey, you can always leave if you want to. Okay, so here's what I also, because I don't want to take too much longer on here. I didn't realize it was going to be on here this long. I had a general idea. But here's something that I think that I would love your input on. I said this earlier, I didn't ask any input yet. But what I'd like to do is I think it'd be really cool if we began to collectively, we picked a time during the week. Maybe I think Sundays have been very good to do these kind of things because people, believe it or not, everybody's home in most cases and so on. Sunday afternoons aren't that bad. It's, we're in the wintertime. But maybe to do a Zoom where we invite, a bunch of people in here, and I do a little, fire up the troops kind of thing. And then we all, at the same time, live, we all do our prospecting to where, I say, okay, guys, we're going to take the next 15 minutes and we're all going to do it. And I want you guys to come on here and tell me, after you get your 5 on here, I want you to come on here and we celebrate you. I was thinking about doing something like that, which I think would be cool because in my notes of what I've been teaching you, one of the things that it said that how you can overcome their fears is by helping people achieve the vital behavior. Okay. How you overcome their fear, because a lot of people have a fear of recruiting. They have a fear of contacting people, which is just false evidence appearing real, which we have no idea why that comes about. What do they think or whatever? And if you don't do that, but if we did something live where, I pulled up my computer screen and I demonstrated, right? I demonstrated whether it was a Facebook Live or a Zoom like this, and then we got people to either make comments. If I did it on Facebook Live or on here, we can get people to talk to each other. It might be great. Oh yeah, boiler room. Thank you. That's perfect. Thank you, Lorette. That's a good terminology. We do like a boiler room where you get everybody going together. I think we can create that massive, exposure, team rallying around each other and so on, and get people to do that. And I would tell you this as well, okay, because I'm not just teaching this to teach it, but I think that a lot of you guys on here have groups or have a few people in your, that you've got involved, If you don't, you can plug them into our groups. But what I would do is you start your own little boiler room where you guys pick a day where three or, where 4 or 5 of you get on a Zoom and collectively you start talking and you just get straight down to it. You just say, hey, go in here. We're going to do this live. We're going to talk to each other and then celebrate afterwards. Okay. I mean, celebrate one way, shape or form, edify somebody and then maybe post it in the Facebook group, or, whatever, post it on their wall, congratulations, that kind of thing. But I think if we start doing stuff like that too, it's going to be good. Also, last couple things. I'm sorry. I always have more things. Is I got a lot of, my brain does not stop working, because I know what I have my hands on, and I'm all in. I mean, I have pushed all my chips into this thing, and it's paying off. Okay, it's all a leap of faith at the beginning, but eventually you start to see the fruit for it, in a big way. And I know that people can do this type of business. The ticket holder training, if you didn't have a ticket and you weren't on there, was absolutely phenomenal that Sam Bean did today. Was some of the best information I've heard to date, in networking, let alone just in iBuumerang. Those things are going good. I'm going to start doing some more private calls for probably people that hit like executive and above. I want to create a leadership group because I think that's the perfect leadership area to edify people. So I'm gonna work on that. Regular calls, things like that I want to ramp up. But I know, believe it or not, you guys have been very, very good and being responsive. A lot of you guys have been consistent with being on here and stuff like that. With this being brand new going into 2020, I mean, most people don't even kick it in until the second or third week in January. It's just consistent. I've seen it for 20 years. So I'm not disappointed. It doesn't bother me. I don't think, what happened, is there momentum? Is there not momentum? I don't think any of those things. I just know I know what the ebbs and flows are of this industry after all these years. And I know that all of a sudden, like 2 days ago, just clear blue, all of a sudden you see all the numbers just go like this. They start to skyrocket, and people start calling and people start, and it is what it is. Okay. So I think we're going to be going into the convention. I think there's going to be some cool announcements there. Obviously we're going to see a lot of you guys there, and it's going to be fantastic. But really appreciate you guys coming on here. I know I gave nobody again much notice. If we start to do some of these things where we do a boiler room, thank you, Loretta, I love that. Where we do a boiler room, I'll give you guys plenty of notice, so you can contact your teams. We'll really do some cool things with it and come up with some ideas to edify people and be loud and proud on here when we do them. Maybe have some music in the background or things like that. So you guys are awesome. I really appreciate you being on here.